Okay, I'm going to get things started here. So hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. My name is Ellen Hyslop, and I am one of the co-founders of The Gist, which is a sports media startup that's all about leveling the playing field in sports. We have a 3 times weekly newsletter that you can subscribe to and check us out at thegistsports.com. That really gives the gist of what's up in sports, but gives equal coverage to both men's as well as women's sports. And today I'm joined by these 4 wonderful women on Equal Pay Day to talk about why we should be betting on women in terms of social influencers and female athletes in terms of social influencers. So over the next half hour or so, I will be picking their brains and asking them a bunch of different questions, but definitely want to encourage everyone who is participating to use this little Q&A box as well, or use the chat function to give us your questions too, and we can make sure that we ask them at the end of the session on the 30-minute mark, as I know that we're all in different areas of Canada and the US, so not sure what time zone everyone's in. So to get things started, I was thinking that we could have a little bit of a lightning round here in terms of everyone giving their elevator pitch, for lack of a better term. So McKenzie, do you mind kicking us off and letting us know a little bit about you?
No problem. Good morning, everyone. Or at least for those of you on the West Coast, I'm McKenzie McLeanHill. I am founder of Lumi Bloom, which is a beauty and wellness e-commerce brand that is centered around the belief that every woman is beautiful, powerful, and unique. Our mission is to prioritize the needs of women and to inspire confidence. I am also an active elite hurdler, competing in the 100-meter hurdles, and I am a champion for women and girls who are reaching for the stars at every turn of their lives in the most authentic and real way for them.
That is the most empowering and fun 1-minute intro I think I've ever heard. Thank you, McKenzie. That was great. Yael, do you want to go next?
Oh, sure. You're going to make me follow that introduction?
Yeah, sorry. Go for it.
McKenzie, that was awesome. But yeah, my name is Yael Averbuch West. I'm a longtime professional soccer player, recently stepped away from a 10-year professional playing career, including some time representing the U.S. women's national team. And as an active professional player in the National Women's Soccer League, I was involved in starting up the NWSL Players Association. So helping myself and my peers to really have a voice and speak for the development of the women's game, but from the player's perspective. And additionally, I started my own business as an active player, which had no idea what I was getting myself into, but it's called Techni Football, and it's geared towards helping players along the same journey that I feel like I was fortunate enough to have had such amazing guidance on. And that's, doing this stuff on your own that really can take you to the next level as a soccer player, but I think more importantly, that empowering feeling of going after your goals and feeling that you can really achieve them. So, yep, that's me, but I don't know if I could match McKenzie's energy on that.
That is great.
Awesome.
I love the sports and athlete and the business crossover. I think that's great. Kamalani, do you want to hit it off next?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Kamalani Dung. I'm honored to be on this panel with all of you amazing women. I'm a professional softball pitcher. Last year was my professional debut. I play over on the Puerto Rican national team, won a few medals there, played in some world championships, traveled the world. It's been a lot of fun. Definitely a big supporter of women. I am a brand ambassador myself and an influencer, so I've kind of been able to see things on both sides of the ball. So I'm also here at Open Sponsorship. I'm a brand specialist, so definitely big advocate for breaking barriers when it comes to professional sports, professional women's sports, and the kind of sponsorships that can come out of them.
Amazing. I love how chill you were when you were like, won a few medals, did a few things. That's great. Anya, do you want to take us home?
Sure. I am absolutely not the best, but definitely gonna wrap it up here in the last spot. But very similar to Yael, I am a member of, I'm the executive director of the National Women's Hockey League Players Association. I started as a player, went through the ranks, and the second year realized we needed some leadership, needed a little bit more guidance. I took a player executive role and then rolled out of playing and have stayed in my executive role with the Players Association. I kind of similar to McKenzie, it's all about the next generation. It's about how do we continue to grow? How do we change the sport? How do we make it more open, accepting? And much of that is sponsorships and partnerships and making women's sport investable as well as scalable, because we all see it every day that the potential in women's sports is so great. So a lot of my time I actually dedicate to helping the league procure sponsorships, because we share our revenue 50-50. So if a deal comes in on the league level, our players get a 50% or get 50% of that sponsorship. Last year, it drove over 30% of players increase in pay. So it's been a exciting use of my time, but it's definitely something that I would say is the cornerstone of what I'm doing right now, is trying to just continue to tell the story about women's sports, specifically women's hockey and the National Women's Hockey League, and try to bring more partners in. So I could not be more excited for this conversation, basically to listen to everybody else, steal their success and share it across other athletes. And I think that's what we all do kind of as our superpower. So I hope I matched the energy here, but I'm excited to be a part of it and represent hockey.
Yeah, that was great. Thanks, Anya. As a Canadian, obviously, I love hockey, so all about that. And I know that you all have a big weekend coming up for the NWHL, which is very exciting to close out the Isabel Cup, which I'm sure you're looking forward to.
For sure. And we're going to be on NBC Sports. So anybody listening or, everybody here, make sure you tune in. It'll be Friday and Saturday prime time. We have 3 games, and it'll be the first time we're ever on a national TV distribution in the National Women's Hockey League, as well as a women's hockey professional team raising a cup. That's the first time. So, I love the firsts, and I love when women can be the first at something, but then I also love to see it normalized. So the more we can get viewership and continue to grow like the NWSL did this year and blow all the numbers out of the water, we can continue to keep these large scale distribution agreements.
Great. So I want to get into things and really start our questions off. This one is a pretty macro question, which I'm interested in hearing about. So why female athletes over male athletes when it comes to using female athletes within your influencer campaigns? And Yael, do you mind answering this one to start?
Yeah, sure. So I think I was thinking about this a little bit, and it's kind of like an unfortunate reason, maybe, but I think it's provided a great platform for women, and that it was highlighted in everybody's personal bio who is on this panel. I think is that women's sports are still at a point where most female athletes, even at the top professional level, can't just be an athlete, and whether it's because there's not enough pay or it's just the opportunities as you're coming up as a youth player, you're kind of hedging your bets because it's not, so enticing to just be a pro. Whatever it is, a lot of the women, even the best in the world at what they do on the field, on the court, in the rink, whatever it is, are still experts in other fields, whether they're continuing their education or owning their own businesses or starting things on the side. And because of that, I think a lot of the brand collaborations that women athletes can have are really genuine. It's not just like somebody saying, okay, hey, buy this product. It's a woman who's actually living her life and probably either using a product or actually aligned with the company's mission. And so for that reason, I think a lot of the influencer strategies can be a lot more genuine, and the women are really interested in building a brand along with the company quite often, and not just kind of posting a picture. So again, it's unfortunate that a woman can't just be an athlete and not think about anything else. But for those reasons, I think a lot of women do some amazing things on the side and can be great partners for companies who are looking to build what they do.
Right. So authenticity, growing together, being more than an athlete also, it sounds like, are some key things from there. Anya, do you have anything to add to that question of why female athletes over male athletes?
Yeah, I think, everything is, I'm just going to compound on ideas because I agree with everything that was said, but also there's just an untapped potential. A female athlete doesn't have 15 to 25 brands vying for their attention and time. It's usually 1 to 2, and they can infuse that brand throughout the entirety of their life. And also most of female athletes have to maintain their own digital presence as well as grow their own digital presence. So, it's not like you just open up People magazine and see A-Rod or whomever wearing a brand or not wearing a brand. Those athletes are building content. They're getting involved with different platforms, whether that be new platforms like TikTok or, traditional platforms, and then continuing to grow and scale. So I think there's a huge differentiation between, putting a brand on a male athlete that might just continue to live his or her or his life specifically, but even a larger athlete, you really get micro influencers in the female athlete space, and they have much higher engagements. So, you know, Steph Curry being repped by Under Armour is great, right? That's great for Under Armour to have such a large brand. And obviously he rolls out sneakers and things that will help the deal. But then you get a female athlete to layer into that has a much higher engagement rate, that has that following, that can live Under Armour's brand unapologetically because it may be her only partner. So I think that a lot of it comes down to potential, and just, you know, the engagement rates are much higher in female athletes.
Yeah, absolutely. We've been using some female athletes on the GIST side as well, and we're seeing the exact same thing in terms of engagement, but also that brand association, the pure like, hey, I actually really do love this brand. I'm going to probably post about it and talk about it more than what our agreement says. I want to switch gears for a minute though, because we've kind of covered the male versus female athlete side of things, but also talk about why you should choose a female athlete over, let's say, another kind of female influencer. So we see a lot of bloggers in the space, fashion in the space, fitness, general lifestyle, which is all great, but wondering how athletes are kind of part of that equation. McKenzie, could you take that one to start?
Sure. Well, as far as I'm concerned, and maybe a little bit biased, but when it comes to securing an influencer, female athletes are the total package. I mean, they train, they strive, they compete, win or even miss a mark in front of the world to see. So, I mean, you get to see them fight, you get to see them commit, you see their resilience, their joy in victory, some remarkable sportsmanship in loss. So it's really a connection to a range of realness on display that draws people to athletes and that makes them relatable to everybody. And it doesn't really matter if you can pole vault or run hurdles or score a goal in soccer. I mean, everyone can relate to just their hearts pouring into something that they're trying to achieve, or celebrating a hard-won achievement, and even picking yourself up after a disappointing loss. So when it comes to, and I'm sure everybody could agree, when it comes to seeing yourself in somebody, you're more likely to care about or be influenced by what they're doing or what they're saying and what they're thinking. So, and in a marketing campaign, in any marketing campaign really, generating an emotional connection, as the other women were stating, basically generating that emotional connection to a service or product is the ultimate goal. So at the end of the day, who better than a female athlete to help fire up some passion?
Love that. Yeah, the realness, the relatability, authenticity kind of being another thing that's come up in this conversation. Kamalani, on your side too, especially being you really are what we're talking about right now. Can you add to that as well in terms of what you're also seeing from brands when they're talking to you, or how you're pitching yourself to brands?
Yeah, so it's been super interesting. Everything that you're saying is, I agree with completely. The being relatable, being able to do something emotional and have that emotional connection is something that we've actually seen brands saying to us. So I've had some really large brand conversations where they're saying that people are starting to catch on to the fact that influencers influence. Like, these people make their living off of influencing. They know that they may not be authentically connected to these products, but you'll see a new one every single day due to the fact that they need this money to survive. Whereas professional women athletes, we don't necessarily need the money to survive, but it definitely helps. But there's a deeper connection there. So same as you were saying, it's very relatable. If Instagram, social media, all of that was to power down today, influencers would be done for. Whereas athletes would still be here standing. Whether you watch sports or not, we're on the news, we're on TV, we're on billboards, we are representing cities, states, nations. So there's definitely just that different level of power that athletes have been holding that we've been finding that brands are actually starting to catch on to. So there's the fact that they're no longer working with influencers because influencers' audiences know what they're doing. Whereas athletes don't pair with as many brands because we don't want our feed to be, we need it to be authentic. Everything about an athlete is empowering, authentic, especially women athletes. So we definitely tend to work with brands that actually fit the vibe, brands that we do use, similar to what everybody's been saying. So that's where I've been seeing a huge difference when it comes to using a typical influencer, which is great for certain campaigns. and using an athlete where a lot of people are starting to lean nowadays, especially due to the fact that women athletes are so multidimensional and able to do so many things on the business side, on the athlete side, represent a lot more than just ourselves as well.
Super interesting. It's almost like that more than an athlete angle, but then also more than an influencer almost angle at the same time that's happening across all of this. I also want to talk about, I mean, women's sports have just had an amazing last 12 months. There's been a rapid rise in viewership really across all sports, which is so exciting to see. And I'm really curious about how this rise in attention of women's sports and this rise in viewership of women's sports is also impacting what women are able to do off the field, off the ice, off the course, off the track, whatever it is, in terms of earning some meaningful income for themselves from a social perspective, or if there's not any tie in terms of they're not seeing an increase in brand sponsorship or what have you. Anya, can you enlighten us on that?
Absolutely. The more we can see the growth of women's sports, the more our names become household names, the more we look at a female athlete and actually see something investable, the more that athletes are able to make it scale. So I have a duplicity here because I'm a former athlete when the league was just starting, and then I'm married to an athlete. My wife is a member of the league. And so when I watch her partnerships and as they've grown and as they scale and really her sale of herself and her sale of her role and title is so much greater now because there's a certain air of respect. You know, it's everything from getting verified on social accounts to having growth metrics to having people buy your jersey, or know who you are, or see you and say, oh, I know who you are, and having that brand recognition of the face of the sport and of the skill all tends to lend itself to the function to make more money. You know, so last year my wife inked some pretty big in our world, but big for her partnerships where she, you know, kind of like we're all saying here, she lived those brands. Like they were brands she wanted to work with or wanted to engage with. And, you know, it can range anywhere from like a lifestyle brand, like the clothing that she authentically wears, to like True Hockey is her partner, and they're a brand, a type of gear. And so watching her ink some of those deals that change the landscape of what she's using, what she's touting out to like her fans, but also that represent who she is, just continues to help our athletes make more income and truthfully make it viable to be a professional athlete as your career.
Yeah, definitely, especially with the state of hockey right now too. So it does definitely feel like there is that trickle down effect. Yael, would you add anything to that?
Yeah, you know, it's really interesting hearing Anya talk specifically about the hockey landscape for me to think about how it compares to soccer, because, you know, the soccer landscape specifically right now is really interesting because we do have some women's soccer players who have really transcended into being celebrities. Like we think of an Alex Morgan, a Megan Rapinoe. There are some household names now in women's soccer, which is really amazing for the sport. And there are also about 200 to 250 other women who play in our league alongside those players who arguably on any given day are the same caliber of player, like literally world class, the best in the world at what they do, yet they have significantly less recognition and less of a platform. So in my work, even as a current player, but kind of leaving the playing field and working with the Players Association, the goal is to really elevate that platform, to give everybody just a bigger platform to be exactly who they are, but for, as Anya said, to become a household name, to be able to have a sponsor come to you and say, hey, I want you to endorse my product. And the reality is, we need the media coverage like there has been this year. We need that to come first. We need the sponsors to come and say, hey, women's soccer or women's sports are valuable. We want to support these women. And then it's I think it's a momentum that builds, that we're seeing the beginning of, but it's just the beginning. It really is, because if you look at, you know, even Anya's point to a good deal being kind of relative in the women's sports space, it's true. It's that when you think of a sponsorship, like, oh, I'm sponsored by whatever company, that has a different implication still in the men's world of sports than it does in the women's. And so it is so important that the media and that these companies see women's sports as an opportunity, because it really is. It's an untapped opportunity. And so I think that the coverage has now just given people a glimpse into the fact that there's so much more to come and so much more opportunity in the space.
Yeah, that's really interesting how you're thinking about it from different sports and how it does impact different athletes in different ways. We do have some questions from the audience, but we're going to ask one more kind of question here and then kind of switch gears to the audience. So stay with us, everyone. What I'm really interested in, especially with March Madness going on, there's been a lot of madness, obviously, this weekend in terms of gender disparity that we saw. But I am curious as to your thoughts when college athletes are going to be able to get paid, and some of them already are, in terms of being influencers, how that is going to open up the space so that it isn't just kind of the pro athlete side of things, but also these college athletes that are a lot of times Gen Z, they already have crazy followings on social. They're already great at creating content. How do you think about college athletes, and how do you think that opening things up to college athletes will also change things for women in colleges as opposed to just those male athletes in colleges? Kamalani, do you want to start on that one?
Yeah, definitely. So I think that it's going to be super interesting to see where this all goes, with people being able to use their name and their image. I think we're going to be able to see a big shift in where the fans actually go. So we'll be able to see if fans are actually buying women's jerseys, if fans are super interested in these specific women athletes. And I think that's where it's going to be a big telling point, and it's going to be a big wake-up call to a lot of people when they start to see how interested people actually are in these women's sports. I know for sure on my end. So I initially started off as a player on top of Open Sponsorship. So the platform Open Sponsorship, and it was amazing for me. I just got out of college. I was looking for brands who would take a risk on me, brands that kind of aligned with me on my level. And Open Sponsorship was the only place for me to find access to these brands, like smaller brands, someone who just came out of college doing $100 deals, very, very at the small level. But that's where it really opened the door for me. And that's where here at Open Sponsorship, I think it's going to be awesome, because at the end of the day, it's going to come down to who's actually doing deals. So you can have all the education you want on everything, but when it comes down to actually getting deals done, athletes will be able to come on platforms. I mean, this is the only platform in the world doing this, which is huge. Hats off to Ishvi and my whole team, everybody here, because I started on the athlete side of things, loved it so much that once I graduated from UC Berkeley, transferred over to the business side. And I think it's just amazing the way that we're pairing athletes of all levels, whether you're a superstar celebrity, whether you're new in college. Definitely we have brands that match that budget for each different level. And I think that's where it's going to be awesome. It's going to be game changing. And I'm super excited to see like where all of this goes, especially for up and coming young athletes as well.
That's super interesting. McKenzie, do you have anything to add to that one? I'm curious on how you think about college athletes within your marketing plan as well.
Well, first, I think what they're doing is great. And thank you for this question. I completely agree with what she was saying. And also, I think that this is, first of all, I know me, and I'm sure everybody else on the panel would have loved to be in a position to be able to leverage our likeness and achievements while we were in college, athletics. And I think what they're doing is actually going to provide an opportunity for women's sports to gain exposure when some women are at the height of their careers. I mean, for a lot of sports or a lot of women athletes, depending on what sport you're playing, there's not much of a career after college. So being at an opportunity or being at a point where you can leverage your likeness and your capabilities and what you're doing when you're at the height is just amazing. And as far as marketing campaigns, yeah, I mean, using influencers, whether you're college or pro athletes, I don't think that matters as much, because as long as everything else is operating at a level playing field in terms of what they're able to do and their capacity, it really is just looking at, how, as they were saying before, how they relate to the brand, how they appeal to your audience, their own social engagement, visibility. And I think that, yeah, people are really going to see that women in college, one, that they really are able to do that because they are having these mega followings. And again, college sports are already on television and all over the news, and they're almost getting more exposure than some professional women's sports. And I think that once you really start seeing the power that the college athletes have, it will just help women's sports overall. I mean, we can all benefit from the exposure and the example of these amazing college athletes.
Totally, very cool. They're already kind of like celebrities on campus, and I'm also really interested in the athletes as well for any kind of local growth. I feel like you can get super localized with some of those athletes as well if you're looking to target anything on campus. So we do have a question from Nick to all of the panelists and whoever wants to take the lead in answering this one. So Nick is from Foot Locker, and growing the women's business is an ongoing goal for them at Foot Locker. So his question is, as current and former pro athletes, do you feel your influence is stronger with products related to your career or products related more to your lifestyle? It's a very good question, Nick.
I'll let you start and then I'll follow up.
I was gonna say the same if you want to jump in and start. So my initial instinct in reading this, first of all, I think it's a really good question, Nick, because I think that you're not the only one who would be wondering that. And my feeling on this is that we all maybe need to shift the way this is viewed, because I think that when it comes to men's sports, somebody's lifestyle is considered part of their career. So if I'm looking at just take soccer, for example, if I want to know what Messi or Ronaldo does at home in his lifestyle, I'm equating that to his excellence on the field, even if it's like what he shampoos his dog with, like we're taking it far away. And I think there's still the instinct on the women's side to separate those two things. At home, maybe you're a mom and something else and an entrepreneur, and then there's the on the field. And the more we can actually, with the help of a big brand like Foot Locker, connect those to be that this is the person who is amazing at what she does in her sports life because of the person she is off the field, and it's all one. I think that will not only help the brands, but also help women athletes to further open up opportunity. So that's my first instinct when I read this, because I do think this is something that a lot of brands probably wonder, and we can all in this space kind of maybe shift this conversation to view it as more of a holistic approach.
Yeah, I would lean into that even a little bit more. Some of the best partnerships that female athletes can get are some that evangelize the life. Evangelize the lifestyle and the athlete and tell that story, because so many of us are in education mode. We'll go somewhere and we have to educate somebody on what a women's hockey professional looks like. And I actually find myself doing this. I'm like, I'm a women's professional hockey player. And then I'm like, I'm a woman, so that's clear. And I don't need to say that word anymore. What I need is somebody to tell my story, or athletes in my league, a few athletes, and pick some athlete stories and tell them organically. And that is where we inspire. And that is where we grow to scale. And that is where a brand like Foot Locker, Nick, because that's where you're from, so we're going to lean into it. That is where you tell a story that captures that very super concentrated audience. You find women's hockey fans, and so the fan side, because you have the lifestyle component of the storytell, as well as the future. I want to be Madison Packer one day, so I want to be like her. I'm going to buy the same shoes. I'm going to wear the same clothes. I'm going to love this story. I'm going to tell this story. I'm going to try to be everything she is. So you're going to get people that buy on both sides. You're going to get people that love women's hockey and want to support brands that are supporting those athletes to continue to grow those partnerships, i.e. fans, staff, other players, etc. And then you're going to get the next Madison Packer, so the generation before. I always think that that's a great question, and telling an athlete's story is truly how you appreciate all versions of her life, and how your brand really jumps into all of the different sides of women's sports, because a huge amount of our following are those future athletes. But the other side is there are just diehard women's sports fans, and they want to invest in brands that invest in their favorite athletes and keep them on the pitch or on the ice or on the track, or throwing the ball. You know what I'm saying? I can imitate a softball pitch better than anybody, but that's my 2 cents there.
Wow, I'd love to chime in, but that was amazing.
Yeah,
right.
We're coming close to the end, but McKenzie or Kamalani, do you have anything to add to what Anya and Yael just said?
I mean, the only thing I could say, they pretty much covered it, but I really do agree with them. And again, when you're getting a female athlete, because I think one of the main differences between males and female athletes, how they're positioned, is when you think males and how they're putting them forward, you think of, they often highlight the strength and the hard work and all that. And where women, it's more of an emotional connection. And I think that is great because, again, emotional connections really drive or are a powerful driver for decision making. So I think by marrying the two, you'll really get something very powerful because you're not only, and I think Nike, sorry, but Nike actually does a really good way of showing this in some of their campaigns when you'll see these great, amazing athletes and you'll see what they're doing. So like for instance, Serena Williams, who's one of my all-time favorites, they'll show you what she's doing in their campaign, but they are really heavily relying on her emotional aspects or the feeling that the what it makes you feel and kind of her lifestyle and kind of how you can connect and relate to it. So yeah, I really do think marrying the two shows that women are also powerful and strong, but seeing our lifestyle is how you're able to relate to other women and that women can feel, oh, I can be that person. I can do that too.
I love that emotional connection definitely rings true. And I feel like I've bought stuff because of that. So I totally agree. Well, that's all the time that we have for our open sponsorship panel today. Thank you all so much for coming on and for joining us. It was so great meeting all of you and learning from all of you, and hoping that everyone has a great rest of their Equal Pay Day, and we'll chat again soon. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Bye, everyone.
Awesome.
Bye.